we can tell somebody, or any team can tell somebody best practice, right? I understand website best practice inside out, but each business and author has a different need. It all plays into the way that site is built.
Hey, I'm Stephanie Feger, and Empower is my middle name. Well, okay, not really, but y'all, it really should be. I believe that empowered people empower people, and I am obsessed with empowering you, the nonfiction author, with impactful marketing strategies to help you take your important message and share it with those who desperately need it, want it, and will buy it. As the owner and chief strategist of the Empower PR Group and the author of 2 books myself, I have merged my love for reading books, writing books, and marketing books to help nonfiction authors with laser-focused strategies and tactics to write books that sell, promote books to those who need and want them most, and build meaningful businesses from empowering messages. I want you to think of this podcast as your one-stop shop for marketing insights from an author who has been there, done that, and understands exactly where you are. So grab a warm beverage. Y'all know this about me. I have a chai tea sitting here, and get a comfy blanket and get ready with your pens, because I am ready to empower you on author websites. This is the Empowered Author Podcast. So we live in a digital age where businesses, including those built by authors, require a digital presence. Potential readers want to learn more about you, your books, your business, and one of the first places they go is online to find your website. But what should be on your website, and what's the purpose of it anyway? How can your website work for you instead of the other way around? There are so many questions for us to answer on this season of the Empowered Author Podcast, but I'm ready to do so because this season we unpack the what's, the whys, the hows, and more of author websites. Come on, y'all, let's go dive in. All right, Sandy, who would have known that there's so much to talk about a website and author websites? Well, I guess you and I knew because we planned 6 episodes on it. I know. And today we're wrapping up the season regarding author websites with everything you didn't know that you needed to know.
Yeah. Yes.
That's a lot.
That is the actual struggle.
We still have stuff.
That is the actual struggle in most projects, right? It's when you just don't know everything that's behind it.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So we want to pull the curtain back today. We want to talk to you about some website verbiage that you might think is a different language. And we want to help you better understand what you're getting into when you take on a website project. And if you were to work with the 2 of us. So Sandy, it's so great to have you here again. And for those who are just tuning in, Sandy and I have done multiple author websites together, continue to. She's such a valued member of the Empower PR Group team as a collaborator. I love it. And I love how websites are what brought us together, but there's so much more about the 2 of us. I don't know. We'll be friends forever, I think.
I think so.
I know so, Sandy.
I agree.
I know so. So let's dive in and let's uncover, Sandy, the stuff that you and I have figured out and that we work with authors on regularly. Because as an author, if you're self-published or you're collaborative or hybrid publishing, you're investing a lot of time and sometimes some funds too into the publishing of your book. But I think what people forget at times is what they need to also invest in afterwards, and that they need to set aside budget for to continue that momentum. And for an author, that author website is a key one. Wouldn't you agree, Sandy?
I do. It because it can be, it needs to be considered as part of the investment.
Yes. When it is from the beginning, it makes things so much easier for everyone because you're also thinking about it in the long run. When you're doing your author headshots, you're thinking about getting some photos for the website too. When you're thinking about all these kind of pieces, it becomes very interwoven. So we'll just high level talk about like budget in general when you are thinking about your book and beginning to think about a website, there's other things outside of the website you're going to need. That budget needs to include photography, whether it's an author headshot and or some website lifestyle photos. I think both are important. You're going to need branding. You're going to make sure you need a beautiful author brand with a color palette and font selections and vibes and all that fun jazz. You're going to need the website. That author website is your hub. It's your digital hub. You're likely going to need some marketing materials like a business card or a bookmark or a speaker one sheet. Like there's so many things you need to kind of think about in the beginning to budget for the stuff that's really going to help that book sell. You can write an amazing book. If you're not marketing it, it may not sell like you want it to be. Right, Sandy?
Absolutely.
So let's break down the website a little bit more for those who are thinking about how they need to bring that to life. And that might help you, listener out there, amazing author or authorpreneur out there, be more prepared when you're diving into all things author websites. And I think first and foremost, Sandy, you need a team. And I have in my notes, you need a team, but really what I want to say is you need the A team. Like you need a great website team that can come together and make sure you have the right people on board to help lead with strategy and help you navigate it. I'd love your thoughts from your perspective on why finding the right fit and a right team is important on this process.
Well, your brand, your book, you as an author need people who understand your goals and who are willing to bring you in, collaborate with you, listen to you, really make sure that your voice is heard in that process. That we can tell somebody, or any team can tell somebody best practice, right? I understand website best practice inside out, but each business and author has a different need. It all plays into the way that site is built. So I think really having a team that understands, is willing to listen, will help you strategize things you haven't thought of yet.
100%. So you want to make sure you have a strong team, especially an amazing website designer and developer, because my business coach says this all the time, and I kind of have made it like a personal mantra for myself. But just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. And so when you find the right team, they can take on things because this is their zone of genius. This is their area of expertise. And I say this from experience, especially when it comes to websites. I spent 3 months of my life, I can never get back, Sandy, creating my first website. And it was a fun challenge. I go back and I look at that and I'm like, when I say 3 months, y'all, I'm talking totally 3 months, like not piddling with it for 3 months, like 3 months to figure this sucker out, when I could have invested in somebody to be able to help me make the best website that was much more functional and mobile accessible and optimized, which mine wasn't. So I share this to say, for those of you all listening, I know that just because you can create a website using some platform that seems easy, maybe that seems like the right fit for you. But my recommendation is 9 times out of 10, finding a team that can do this is going to make more sense for you in the long run. So get that A team in place.
Yes. And I will tell you that it was very difficult for me to come in after I knew how much heart and soul Stephanie had put into a 3-month website, for me to come in and have to find ways to tactfully say, hey, I think we can make this better.
Oh, you did a great job. And then I just told her, throw it all away and let's start over. So it was just throw it away. I know, because I believe now, because I see it now. And in our collaboration, I've seen so much of how when you invest in someone who is very specific at what they do and love what they do and spend their energy researching how to be effective and efficient and be cutting edge and innovative, That saves everybody time and money in the long run. So get that right team in place. This next thing, Sandy, I think I'm giggling under my breath because I know you and I know how important it is. And many people haven't thought through this before they come to the website process. So if you're an author considering a website and want Sandy and I to support you in that process, we're going to ask you about your assets from the very beginning. And I'm not talking about any other assets except your brand assets, your photography, your content, and any publisher assets like book stacks and book images. You're going to want to make sure you have all of those at your fingertips, because a website, Sandy, it doesn't just go poof out of thin air and create. Like, we need to have things to bring it to life, right?
Yes. Yes. I will be the first to tell you that design is based on the assets. It is not the other way around. You can't create a layout and hope that the copy fits or hope that it matches the logo. It has to be assets first.
It does. So if you don't, the beautiful thing about the Empower PR group and what we have here is all of those are assets our teams can help you with if you don't have it. So if you don't have an author brand, that's okay. We have an amazing designer, Madeline, on the team that can help get that author brand in place. If you don't have your photography yet, no worries. If you live here local in the greater Louisville, Kentucky area, I've got a phenomenal photographer. And even if you don't live here local, you can be like Sandy and hop in the car and come visit, and we can get you a photo shoot there. But we also, I've been able to help photo direct with amazing photographers across the U.S. to ensure that we're getting the right photos for a website. It's great for you to have an idea of the direction of the content you want, but we've also got great content writers if you need that support. Publisher assets, we can make that happen too. So just know these are assets that are needed. And before we can move forward really in creating an amazing website for you, you're going to want these in your fingertips and have them ready, or at least bring our team on board to help you get them. I think the other thing, Sandy, that I know, and I want to talk a little bit about the difference about this, because when I was spending those 3 months of my life that I'll never get back on building my website, I was so confused about domains and hosting. So can you tell us a little bit about domains and hosting and why they're important? Because I don't think the general public knows this.
Well, I mean, a domain is obviously the address for your house. Right? That's the place where somebody's going to go visit it. The domain, you have to own it. I have heard horror stories of developers, designers who will buy it for you. Buy your domains. And I say domains plural because I believe everybody should own their name, if possible. You know, obviously, if your book title, there are multiple domains that you can point all to the same website. So having that domain and a place where we can create an email address, which plays a big part in the website, form deliverability. You know, there are a lot of things that have to happen with that domain. So it is the address for your house, but it's also important for email and brand awareness.
Hey, Stephanie here, and I wanted to pop into the conversation to offer you a life vest if you're feeling a bit overwhelmed by not having a website or questioning how strong your current one is or should be. Listen, don't fret about the past. Sandy and I want to help you move forward, and we've pulled together a tool to help you. Our Ready to Build Your Website Preparedness Kit. Yes, it's as formal as it sounds. No, not really. It's a wonderful tool to help you ensure that you have everything prepped and ready as you wave your white flag of surrender and ask for some website help. This tool will save you and your website developer time in the process. Visit empowerprgroup.com/website to download it today. And let's schedule time to chat and see if Sandy and I can help you with your website needs. Alrighty, back to the conversation. Yeah, so StephanieFeger.com, for instance, that is the domain. That is how I tell people to get to the website. And it directs people to where the website lives, just like your mailing address to get people to your house. Exactly. So you have to have that. And I do agree, Sandy, as an author, you should always have your name. Mm-hmm. If your name is already taken or you have a more generalized name, you could always do like Stephanie Feger author or author Stephanie Feger, something like that I would still grab. Yep. Your book title is a good example too of a domain you might want. Mm-hmm. If your book title is taken, you can add the book at the end. So for instance, Color Today Pretty is the name of my book. If that happened to have been taken, I could have done Color Today Pretty, the book. Think about if you're on a stage or if you're meeting someone at the grocery, someone in passing, and you want to give them the address to get to your book house, your not physical house, but your web house. Think of something that's easy for them to remember. It could be a tagline. It could be, ilovebooks.com, right? That one's probably taken, but it could be a tagline that aligns with your book or your overall message.
Yeah. I wanted to just say there are a lot of ways to buy domains. Please know that there are many ways. And if you're not sure, you can always ask for recommendations on where to buy a domain. It can save you significantly. If you have multiple domains, there are places that charge $10 a year more, which doesn't seem significant. But if you have 6 or 7 domains, that's $60, $70 a year that you could not spend.
Yes. One of my favorite things about Sandy, and this is something that she's provided to me, is she's always looking for ways to think smarter, not harder. And I love that, what you just said. Like, we sat down one day and you go, we're looking through your domain, Stephanie, and we're making sure that they're at the right places. So exactly, like, nothing in life is only one of two ways. Like, there's several options. So I think that's good. Sandy, tell us a little bit about now hosting and what that means.
So hosting is, in the simplest terms, your domain is the address. The hosting is the place where the actual website is stored, the files, so that they can be fed, on the internet. It's really where your site is, where it lives.
So maybe if we're using the house analogy, mm-hmm. the domain is the address and the hosting is like the plot of land that your house is on. Like it's it's the space, it's the land. It's not the house. Yeah. The house is we'll get to that in a minute, but it's like where it lives. Like you can't live in a house that just floats in outer space, at least not yet, right? But you have to have it rooted somewhere.
Yes.
And that's where the domain will direct to. Yeah, and you want a good host too. So this is an annual cost, just like the domain is an annual cost, or unless you buy it for a couple years at a time. And, sometimes you can do hosting on your own. Sometimes, like Sandy, I love that you offer hosting through your packages too, because there are things within hosting that I don't know what's right or wrong, and you do. So it's really good to make sure that you have a good host.
There are a lot of things that could go wrong in a website, or that could just be a performance issue. And hosting is the main thing that will cause performance issues. So I do work with it's a cloud host. So it's not your typical shared hosting provider, but it is a cloud host. It has a little different look on the back end. So a lot of clients don't get in there themselves, but hosting can be a huge problem for a website if it's not really good hosting.
So I have to share a story that those 3 years that I spent, or 3 months, not 3 years, 3 months that I spent building my website. There was one thing that I did that was good. And that was in my hosting package, I made sure that it did backup. Yeah. And I'm really glad that I did that and I didn't even know if that was a good investment at the time. But I'll never forget, I go to get on my website one day because I was so proud of this little baby that I'd birthed. And it was all written in code. There was no English language. There was all in code. And I had a panic attack. Like, oh my gosh, I'm losing 3 months of my life. What happened? But because the hosting package I bought had backup, I was able to revert the website to like a couple days before a crazy update created that code pivot. And this is why I now let Sandy host all of my stuff, because I don't want to deal with that. I don't want to have to deal with code. I don't understand it. And that's why people, would collaborate with you or others who have care and maintenance plans that that also incorporate hosting.
Yes. Yeah. And because, I do most of my work in WordPress, updates are a prime example of, you can't be too quick to update. You have to, I spend a lot of time in communities and listen and know when it's safe to make those updates and when it may not be in the best interest of the site to do that.
Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should.
That's right.
Prime example. Okay, well, you mentioned WordPress, Sandy. Let's go over and let's talk about the house then. If your website is a house, it has to be created. And, WordPress or Wix or Squarespace, I know we do a lot of our stuff in WordPress, but talk to us a little bit about that platform and how that brings the website to life.
So, it's the platform is the thing you use to actually build and I do most of my work in WordPress because of the flexibility that it allows. I use WordPress.org self-hosted, not WordPress.com, which is a WordPress hosted site. And I use WordPress.org because of the flexibility. It just grows much easier with a company. I can add my own elements, my own themes, my own plugins, my own things. It's just easier to add into as you get bigger and bigger. So WordPress is my choice in most cases. So
talk to me. All right. We understand the address, the land, the house. So this is how, and this is some behind the scenes curtain stuff that you don't need to stress about when you collaborate with somebody. But I do think to help bring your website to life, but I do think it's really smart to be aware of these things, so that you understand all of the inner workings. There's also something, Sandy, that's called the SSL certificate. And I also stumbled upon this and realized without it, certain people in certain places weren't able to get to my site. Right. So help me understand or share with the group what about the SSL certificate and why that's important.
So an SSL certificate used to be for e-commerce sites. It is a security. So it is the thing that protects, your house. It protected credit card numbers and, it encrypts things. So initially it was for heavy usage, e-commerce, but Google decided a couple years ago that it would flag sites that did not have SSL certificates. Mm-hmm. And it seems really minor, but people look for the lock. And if the lock is not there, it is obvious, it will just flash, It depends on the site you're on, but I have seen it just be a super mild no lock with a little thing that just says not secure. I have seen it say you can't enter this site. There's no, it's not a secure site. Some of them I know well and I can override that, but it is really just for the person on the other end to know that they are safe to go into that site.
Yeah. And I think for authors, I don't think having an SSL certificate is nice to have. I think you must. Yeah. And here's why. In my first website, I thought I had purchased it or did everything right, and it wasn't turned on. And what happened is the people that were looking to hire me to come speak to their companies were using their company internet to be able to look at my website to see if I was a good fit. But they couldn't open the website on their company's website, like service and platform, because it wasn't considered secure yet. There was no difference in the content that I had. It was just having that certificate. And it was a barrier in the beginning for me to be able to be seen by people that could have hired me and could have bought bulk books and all of these things. So I quickly fixed that once I figured that out. But again, collaborating with a team that understands all of this means you don't have to stress about it. It's just built into how we do work. But I do think it's important. If you've ever noticed a website that you get those error messages or something pops up and you have to click yes to go in, like that's because they don't have the SSL certificate.
Yeah. And a host, a really good host, a lot of times those certificates are included. I know some hosts make you pay extra for those, and they are not really cheap certificates, but a good host, in my opinion, will include that SSL certificate. And there are different levels of SSL certificates. Most people need the basic, security just to show Google that they are, in fact, a secure site.
Just to get over that weird hump. Yes. Okay. So those are the kind of the basics of a website. However, there's a couple of other things we want to make sure you're aware of that are also things Sandy and I would be talking to you about. I know Sandy's already mentioned when touching base on the domain, how it provides you the opportunity to have a website. I mean, not have an email. I'm sorry. So I'm just going to put it out there, Sandy. If I see an email from someone that comes from AOL, Yahoo, or Gmail, I have this illusion that you don't take this business seriously. You're not taking what you're doing seriously. I think those are great platforms for like side hustles. But if you're an author and you are like commanding it, then we need to get you an email address that's connected to a domain that has relevancy to your author brand.
Like I just went through this, and I know because we had talked about it. Forms on websites do not deliver easily to email. It takes some work. You have to install some plugins to just make sure that any form submissions actually make it to the person it's intended to get to. We've all had problems with that. And I struggle with some clients who are still using Gmail, and it just, I can't do my normal process to make that happen. Yeah, it looks much more professional. And I always suggest people do not do it through their host. If your server goes down, your email's down. A lot of times I use Google, G Suite or whatever it's called now, Workspace, I think it's called now. Or Microsoft. Either of the two, I suggest people use instead of their actual host. Because if your website goes down on the server side, you can still email people. And if your email goes down, you can move it over somewhere.
That's really important. I think another thing while we're on the topic of email, you'll want to have some sort of an email marketing provider that is on your website. There's several to choose from. I'm not sure any of them are perfect, but I'm a big fan of MailChimp. So
do not think that you can use your Google Workspace or your Microsoft to send mass emails. I haven't heard it. I think people are finally getting to that place where they realize they can't do that, but you need a separate service for your email to send mass emails.
And that has to do with spam issues. I think the last thing, Sandy, I want to touch on is just there are costs that are required to maintain it and to ensure that you don't lose your domain and someone takes it. You might also want to consider a care package or a maintenance package. Sandy, talk to us a little bit about the pros of a package like that and why someone might want to consider that.
So I think, a lot of it comes down to, you're not an expert in, there are a lot of things that could go wrong, but hosting backup is important. I also believe that you have to have multiple backups because you have to have that fail safe. I mean, if that hosting backup is not good, you should really have another backup someplace else, not in your website, because that defeats the purpose. So there are a lot of updates and maintenance and somebody just keeping an eye on that site to make sure it's up. Broken links are huge. So checking to make sure that there aren't broken links. You write an article linked to somebody's website, but they take that article down. You're going to have a broken link if they haven't redirected it. So, it all plays a part in SEO and user experience. So just having somebody to make sure that the updates are being made. A lot of updates need to be made because of security issues. There was a huge security breach recently that, I felt my clients needed to know about. So I sent emails to everybody just to let them know that it was an issue, not for them because their site is being maintained, but if your site's not being maintained, it could be an issue. You could have malware and not know it. So I just think overall, you don't get paid to babysit your website. And it takes you away from your business and your writing and the other things that you're trying to do if you're also trying to learn how to be your website person. I always say I can do little things around the house. I can patch a hole in the drywall, but I cannot. There are a lot of things I can't do, and I'm not a plumber, so I call a plumber when I need something done. And I hope that I do the same.
Right. So we've pulled back the curtain on any costs that you may need to know and need to budget for when getting a website up and designed, and things you probably didn't even know you needed to know that you now know. In today's world, your digital presence is really like a storefront, and you want it to work for you, and you want it to speak to your audience. You want it to inspire them and call them to action. I have to say, Sandy, it means a lot to me, and it really gives me peace of mind having you on the team and supporting my work. Thank you.
I am too. I love working with Empower authors.
We love you, Sandy. It's just a love fest over here. Thank you for being a part of this season. It means so much to me for you to do this. Thanks for coming. And you're going to have to come back later. We have so much stuff to still talk about on the website world.
There's so much. Yeah. It goes so much deeper.
Have you been thinking that a website is something you need, or that you'd love for someone to take a peek at yours and see how you could improve upon it? Well, one of the first things that we work on with authors at the Empower PR Group is building upon their digital presence. Author friend, hear me when I say that you need this. Whether or not you would like myself or our team to help you, we want you to feel prepared when you go to bring your website to life. So we've created a tool for you. Consider it your website prep kit. The Ready to Build Your Website Preparedness Kit will provide you with insights on everything you need to make your website development experience easy peasy and run smoothly. And if our team can help with that experience, we'd love to. Visit empowerprgroup.com/website or see the link in the show notes to download that tool and learn more about how we can help you with your author branding digital presence. Remember, empowered people empower people. I've empowered you. Now, with your website in place, it is your turn to empower others.